The Tiger II is surely one of the most famous tanks of World War II. It was widely feared and mythologized, with a reputation of being virtually indestructible. And by being a 70-ton beast with thick armor and a lethal 88mm gun, people had every right to believe the wartime propaganda. But few facts that completely undercut its battlefield effectiveness remained unspoken of at the time. The idea for the Tiger II started after Germany's encounter with new Soviet tanks in 1941 and 1942. Hitler's expectations for this next-generation tank were so big that it was being worked on before its predecessor, the Tiger I, even made a debut on the war front. It was envisioned as a breakthrough tank that could breach enemy defenses head-on with superior firepower and armor. The tank's concept was handed over to three firms in early 1943, and the work had begun. Henschel and Porsche were tasked with its design, whereas Krupp was contracted to develop a suitable turret and weapon. Porsche took a more innovative and radical side, with a mid-mounted engine, a rear turret placement, and even an experimental gasoline-electric hybrid drive in one variant. However, German High Command decided to go with Henschel's more conventional design, as it was superior for mass production. Henschel's approach, with a rear-mounted engine, fully sloped armor, and an improved torsion bar suspension with large overlapping steel road wheels, was simply less risky for the battlefield, and they were awarded the contract. This next-generation heavy tank's official name was Panzer VI, or Tiger II, but German troops began calling it Königstiger, or King Tiger. This name was often translated as Royal Tiger, which underscored its intended status as the king of tanks. One of the Tiger II's distinctive design elements was its turret, which went through significant revisions before and during production. The initial turret design, often incorrectly called the Porsche turret, was a Krupp-designed, rounded mantlet turret, originally intended for both prototypes. It had a curved front plate and sloped sides, which gave it a more rounded, streamlined look. In 1944, around 50 Tiger II tanks were built and sent to combat with this initial turret, before they realized it had a big weak point. A shot trap was hidden under the curved gun mantlet. Any incoming shell that hit the lower curve could ricochet down into the thin hull roof armor. However, the Germans noticed this quickly, and before these units had even seen combat, revisions were made in production by late 1943. The redesigned production turret came with a much thicker flat front plate, which eliminated the shot trap and was simplified for production by reducing its curved sides. The first of many issues started to show in production. Even though 1,500 Tiger II units were ordered, Henschel only managed to deliver 492 tanks. The lack of produced units was directly affected by a series of RAF raids in late 1944, which had devastated Henschel's facilities. Not only did this delay production, but it also likely stopped an additional 650 Tiger II units from being built. In addition to that, each Tiger II tank cost around 320,000 Reichsmarks per unit, which was 2 to 3 times the cost of a simpler medium tank like the Panzer IV or the Panther. There was a lot of controversy on the question of whether it would be better to just build a greater number of reliable, already proven medium tanks, instead of spending a fortune on fewer super heavies. Additional production issues revealed themselves in the late war, such as material shortages. As the Germans were short on rubber, the Tiger II tank's large road wheels were all steel, instead of the then standard rubber tires that the Tiger I had. Further shortages affected armor plate quality, as the Germans had used increasingly scarce high-grade alloys to build them. Material shortages began to pile up, with a lot of subcomponents in short supply as well, such as final drives, gaskets, and even fuel. Henschel and Krupp kept making revisions and proposing adjustments with each additional material missing, but they could not manage to implement any of them before the war's end. With all the ambitious concepts Germany had, such as a new Maybach HL234 fuel-injected engine with 800 horsepower, a 105mm high-velocity gun, and even an infrared night-fighting scope design, it was very clear how big their plans were. The reality was a bit different from that, though, as none of these proposed upgrades ever saw production. Nevertheless, some big plans did happen, such as the Jagdtiger variant of the Tiger II, produced in 1944 and 1945. Built on an extended Tiger II hull with a huge 128mm gun on a fixed casemate, it was the heaviest armored vehicle of the war, often called a tank destroyer. But as feared as this tank was, it shared a similar fate to its predecessor. With many mechanical issues and a limited production number of 88 units, it concluded the story of Germany's wartime industry's overextension with diminishing returns. On paper, however, the Tiger II tank was a formidable force and a definite war decider. It was significantly bigger than the American M4 Sherman or Soviet T-34, as it weighed around 68.5 tons. And with its gun forward, it was over 10 meters long, 3.75 meters wide, and around 3 meters tall. Armor 150 millimeters thick, sloped at 40 to 50 degrees, alongside a long-barrelled, high-muzzle velocity cannon with advanced optics, was a lethal combination. The cannon could hit targets at 1 to 2 kilometers and penetrate around 202 millimeters of armor at 100 meters, or up to 132 millimeters at 2,000 meters using standard AP rounds, which was a cheat code itself. Now, add an extraordinarily thick armor for World War II standards on top of that, and we get a definite war decider. Well, considering everything went as planned, the heavy armor was causing consequent stresses on the engine, suspension, and fuel consumption, which played a big role in the long game. The weight was slowing the tank down in combat, as a Maybach P30 V12 gasoline engine just wasn't enough to carry this 70-ton beast. This was a no-brainer, considering the fact that the same motor was used on the 45-ton Panther tank, but Germany still went with it. Even though the Germans somehow calculated that the tank could reach 38 kilometers per hour or 24 miles per hour, the reality was a bit different. Commanders avoided going over 20 kilometers per hour cruising speed, as anything more than that often left the tank under serious mechanical strain, resulting in faults and breakdowns. And by late 1944, the number of trained crewmen aware of this limitation was growing lower and lower, which made breakdowns even more frequent, once again exposing the tank's unreliability and further reducing its effectiveness. In cross-country fields, the Tiger II reached a crawling pace of roughly 10 to 15 kilometers per hour under good conditions. Laggy acceleration made it hard to maneuver the tank in tight areas, just adding to the list of small problems that ultimately accumulated and kept the King Tiger from living up to its huge expectations. A double-link track system just added to this ongoing list. It was supposed to simplify the already struggling production, but it turned out that engaging every other tooth on the drive's sprocket, rather than every single one, caused more harm than good when coupled with the Tiger II's massive weight. This caused additional stress on the final drive, often resulting in final drive breakdowns. Despite extraordinary firepower and armor that could overpower any tank in frontal engagement, the Tiger II's weaknesses overpowered its own strengths. Besides being over-engineered and unreliable, it also consumed roughly 500 litres per 100 kilometres, which put Germany in an unfavourable position toward the war's end, when they were already struggling with petrol supplies. Once the Tiger II broke down in the field, on-site repairs were another one of its headaches, as there was no dedicated vehicle capable of towing it away. Only two options were available: another Tiger II or multiple standard tanks working in combined effort, neither of which made sense to use for towing instead of fighting. This gave German crews no choice but to abandon and destroy their own tank to prevent it from being captured. Not to mention, it happened routinely. It was estimated that far more Tigers were destroyed by their own crews due to breakdown or fuel exhaustion than by enemy fire. Once on the battlefield, though, the Tiger II was ruthless. However, it was getting to the battlefield that caused the Germans the most trouble. There are numerous reports of mechanical failures during transit to the battlefield. One of them involved the Army's 501st Heavy Panzer Battalion, which arrived on the Eastern Front in August 1944, with only 8 out of 45 tanks in operational state. The rest had broken down during transport. Another instance was the Panzer Lehr Division in France, which received 5 Tiger IIs as reinforcement, where all 5 of them broke down before ever seeing combat. On top of that, the Tiger II crews had to destroy them to prevent them from being captured. This underlines the importance of operational issues and mechanical breakdowns that the German army encountered with a tank that was supposed to end the war in their favour. Although Tiger II's armour was amongst its strongest features, it wasn't indestructible. A group of Tiger II tanks was ambushed by a handful of Soviet T-34-85 medium tanks from close range by cleverly using the terrain to remain hidden. In this surprise attack, 3 Tiger IIs were knocked out. As Soviet tanks attacked from the side, one of them managed to set off Tiger's ammunition that was kept inside the tank, resulting in a horrific internal explosion, killing all the crew and blowing the turret off. This was one of many situations where the Tiger II crews had suffered the ultimate outcome. Even though Tiger II commanders compared being in a Tiger II to holding a sledgehammer while enemies had knives, that confidence had a terrifying dark side. They knew their tank was a prime target, and that if anything went wrong, which it often did, all that confidence would turn to fear in seconds. Any breakdown, track hit, or outflanked situation in the middle of the battlefield would make their survival chances plummet. The Tiger II's most famous action in the West, and another example of its strengths showing as weaknesses, came during Germany's final offensive in the West, better known as Battle of the Bulge. The SS Panzer Division advanced with 6 King Tigers and sowed fear and terror in the US Army, as it was virtually impervious when attacked frontally. What the Tiger II crews did not count on, however, were its strategic flaws when used on bad terrain. It is fair to say that dense forests, bridges, and poor roads in the Ardennes were not serving the 70-ton tanks well. An even bigger concern for German troops was how quickly the offensive had run out of fuel supply. Realizing that replacing something so fundamental, such as fuel, with brute force would not work, the German offensive made a decision to abandon all of their heavy equipment and attempt to flee on foot. Entrapped, encircled, and out of fuel, a total of 135 armored vehicles were left behind in the Ardennes. And despite German troops' best efforts to destroy the tanks left behind in a quick breakout attempt, not all were rendered inoperable. One of the King Tigers left behind was later recovered, and today stands as a monument in L'Église as a tangible reminder of how Germany's heaviest and most feared tank could end up stranded and abandoned. Putting this all together, it is safe to say that the Tiger II was created with a brutal trade-off. Sacrificing speed, ease of use, and production quantity for raw power and protection could actually justify its King Tiger nickname, as long as the battlefield was open terrain for long-range shooting. But what really undercut its brute force were all the operational and mechanical issues that followed it throughout the war, and especially towards the end.